We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you sickos out there, if you hardcore college football fans love everything like I do, please subscribe to the channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this college football, definitely, most definitely, Rebel Outpost channel with a donation. Hit the dollar sign where you make a comment, and I will get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Everybody, welcome in to the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend with your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls later in the show. I completely understand why you can't make it to every live show. Of course, you've all got lives. But you got to make sure you pop in a day after, 2 days after. What was that show about? Pop it in, view it. Excuse me, still battling that cough. Still battling the cough. The doctor says I could have it for another month. You got to check out what we're talking about here at Peek Around the Corner. September 1st, we put on a live show. The Big 12, UConn, and Fox, the dance continues, and it is going to continue to 2025. We talked about it on our live show on September 1st. We said, you're not going to get an answer in 2024. We were dead sure of it. It's why we reported it. Why did we report it? Why would other people using the word imminent? We were saying, hold on, you move too fast. You got to make the moment last. There is a reason why we told you what we tell you. We went over some of the reasons. We're going to push the envelope just a little bit more, about there is a lot of balls in the air through all of college football. And that includes the Big 12. That especially with the Big 12. And there is one huge elephant in the room. And we're going to push it just a little bit tonight. What that elephant is. But I will not be able to go into details. But the elephant is not the ACC. There is the Big 12 and other conferences, and there is a lot of decisions that got to be made. And when you're making those decisions, you got to, if we're talking about UConn, which we're going to be talking about UConn tonight, you got to put in UConn. Is the addition of UConn, would that be a positive impact to the Big 12 or a negative impact to the Big 12? But not how things stand right now on September 5th, but how they're going to stand on March 5th, in June 5th of 2025. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And we're not even talking about the ACC and what could happen there. So we are going to push the envelope. I'm going to mention something new. I'm going to hop in of the hot waters, and then I'm going to quickly hop out. And the fat guy from Minnesota is going to put a big old towel around his fat body, dry off, and head to the car and drive away. I don't have the okay. I'm going to push it just a little bit more. I want you to know why you received the peek around the corner on September 1st. Why we knew at peek around the corner there wasn't going to be a resolution in 2024 on the UConn. That's what our live show was about, September 1st. So, what the Big 12 commissioner said today in a post, the message that he sent, should not have surprised the PATC community at all. If you were watching the September 1st show, or if you came back and watched a little bit of it the day later, 2 days later, 3 days later, which you all should be doing. And shame on you if you're not. Okay. So we're going to get into the UConn story at the beginning of the monologue. And then we're going to go into our selections, our picks against the spread. 4-6 PATC community versus 1-9 Greg, the Ice Age. But we're going to start with the Big 12 UConn. We're going to start there in our monologue. Because, honestly, here I am. Here I am. Right. I mean, September 1st, we put out information that other people were not putting out. I'm going to put out a little bit more information that nobody's going to put out here on September 5th. And the only thing that the PATC community is worried about is if I pick their team, if I select their team against the spread. None of them want me to pick their team. I'm about to give a peek around the corner, another peek around the corner. Information that's not out there. And the only thing the PATC community is worried about is if I pick their team to do well on Saturday. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The disrespect. The fat guy from Minnesota is the Rodney Dangerfield of college football YouTube channels. But I do want to thank everybody. I'm going to thank everybody who's coming in at the beginning of our show, Thursday, September 5th. We're going to be talking about UConn and the Big 12 in a way that nobody else is talking about it. And then we're going to do our selections. T-Ducks is in the house. Thank you, T-Ducks, for coming on in. James Foster, Ryan Brooks. Again, Ryan, I apologize. Nussmeier was brilliant. I feel bad about Emery's injury. Man, he was running with authority against USC. Another injury. Hopefully, it's another setback. It's going to be a minor setback for a major comeback for Emery, the great running back of LSU. Florida Man is in the house. Seminole is in the house. Caleb Ramirez, Amax, Bruce Harris, Steele Austin, George Horton, Steve McNeely, down in Kansas is in the house. The Walking Geek, Bill G, John Menser, Matt Neeson. Hello, Greg. Go Cyclones with win Saturday. Well, the Cyhawk game, it's one of our, we got a whole lot of games this week. We got 12 of them. And it's one of them. And I think, Matt, you know where I stand on the issue on this game. And Matt is showing bravery. Matt is showing loyalty to the fat guy from Minnesota. He's not running away that I like the Cyclones in week 2. Matt Neeson is not saying, no, Greg. Don't take the Cyclones. Matt Neeson is a very smart man. Or he's not all there. One or the other. Just kidding, man. Stephen Clark is in the house. Hello, everybody. Go Gophers. I don't see that very often. Go Gophers. Thank you, Stephen. Expedition Greg is here. John Menser. Jimmy is in the house. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. UConn did not get conned. I disagree with my friend Rock and Rant. Immaculate is in the house. Randy Taylor, Mr. Spartans. I didn't think this was happening anyway. Immaculate, I'm watching the house here and right now. Let us know if there's anything drops. Thank you, Immaculate Work. We will cover it, but I got to cover. We got to do the picks, and we got to hit this UConn story, and then we'll get to the house hearings afterwards. Daniel Gorby, Gold Nose is in the house. Skaven, yes, hello, Mad Gopher. Nathan says hi. Hi, Nathan. Connecticut fan. Okay, you guys are missing the boat, and it's a good thing I'm here. UConn to ACC now. Big 12 is not so likely. Okay, Steele Austin is in the house. Good evening, Greg. Buckshot Kid. Two King Slots. Anthony Eason. Clinton Moses. Nitwit. Illini Ted. Yes. It's impressive cooling. It's almost statistically impossible, but it's not statistically impossible because the fat guy from Minnesota achieved it. Ryan Thomas is in the house. He's hoping I don't pick BYU. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Bob Swanger is in the house. Crab Cakes in Football is here. RU Muggs is in the house. Greg Thomas, thank you so much. Good evening. Thank you, Ryan Thomas. Greg the Fool's Gold. There's enough nicknames. Let's not mix up the gold. It's Greg the Gold, Greg the Cooler, Greg the Iceberg, Greg the Moron. I appreciate the super chat. I appreciate the creativity. But let's not mix up. Please don't use gold in a negative fashion. I'm trying to, well, it don't matter. I'm 1-9, so you can say whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. Michael K, 19th C fan. Nico is in the house. Almighty Finn, Cranky Tiger, Charlie Atwood is in the house. Black Rain, what's up, Greg? What's up, sir? What is going on, my man? ALC Louisville. Louisville Tiger is in the house. Jeff Morgan. Okay, thank you all for coming on in. Let's get to it. So this was reported this morning. UConn to the Big 12 talks have stalled. Following detailed discussions with my conference colleagues alongside UConn leadership, we have jointly decided to pause our conversations at this time, per Brett Yormark. Following detailed discussions, and they were real as can be. Nobody was conned. This was not fake. This was real. And it's gonna happen again in 2025. Now, if you notice, following detailed discussions with my conference colleagues, alongside UConn leadership, we have jointly decided to pause our conversations. Pete Thamel puts in the UConn leadership as part of his message today. And again, on September 1st, college football peek around the corner, we reported to you that there was going to be no decisions made. This story wasn't going to end. We got the word, we reported to you, and we also said that when this information comes out, that people were going to jump all over it. That people were going to say, UConn has been denied. Or it wasn't real. None of that is true. I said on September 1st, I do not have a crystal ball, but I do have a peek around the corner. This story was not going to end. We were not going to get resolution. And you guys would be finding out about it. And you found out about it today. 3 days after I reported to you. There is a reason why we were so sure. And I'm going to push that envelope just a little bit more. I am not saying that UConn is not going to get into the Big 12. I am not saying that UConn is going to get in the Big 12. What I'm saying is there cannot be a decision made today. And it's not going to be a decision made in October. There's not going to be a decision made in November. There's not going to be a decision made in December. Because the Big 12 has other balls juggling that your mark is doing right now. And I gave some examples of it on September 1st. Some of it is very small, little. The All-State Conference, the naming rights. There's other revenue streams that the Big 12's working on that I told you about. Well, I've pushed the envelope enough to where I'm talking freely about it, where non-traditional college football games being played on non-traditional college football dates throughout the calendar. And they're also possibly working on some other stuff like a flex weekend. But anyways, the Big 12 is working on some different revenue streams. They're also working on something else. I'm going to just barely touch it today. I'm okay to say it. I got the okay about an hour ago. I mentioned it quite quickly on September 1st. I got the okay to mention it 54 minutes ago. There is one huge elephant in the room. And I know I'm just teasing this a little bit longer. But for those out there who are criticizing your mark once again, because everybody knows that the Big 12 is talking to UConn because there were leaks. Everybody bashing your mark today are the exact same people who bashed your mark when he made the media deal with Fox and ESPN on October 30th, 2022. When we said it was an absolute home run, and they said this deal is going to make the Big 12 into the G5 conference, and the Pac-12 was going to survive as a power conference. The exact same people who've gotten everything wrong don't have this as well. I'm warning you. I'm warning you. Their grievances over one particular conference or another blinds them. They don't have, you got to have curiosity. You got to keep poking and prodding. And there's people out there that just are never going to get it right. I just want to put that out now. Here is the elephant in the room. Don't miss it. I'm only going to talk about 2 minutes on this. And then I'm jumping out. And I'm not even going to answer questions on it. If you give me a phone call late in the show and you question me about it, I'm not going to be able to go any deeper into it. The Big 12 is having serious talks with multiple private equity firms. Number one. Number two, it has been explained to me that, these private equity firms, it ain't so much about the money that they can deliver, but it is the added value that they say they can deliver. Their relationships with other sponsorships, other things they partially own. I cannot explain it well enough because I don't know the world well enough. So you either can take what I'm saying or throw it away. Do whatever you want with it. But it is why NBA franchises have private equity involved. It is why the NFL just opened up the ability for NFL franchises to have a certain percent of their ownership be it private equity, because it is the added value that they can give you. And that's all I can say. I am not saying that the NBA franchises are correct in doing this, not correct in doing this. The NFL, correct. I'll leave it up to you guys. I have no idea. But that is what's being told to me. And the Big 12 have had, and they're not the only conference, they've had deep discussions with private equity. And this is where I'm going to jump in to the hot waters of PATC, and then I'm going to jump out, dry myself off, get in the car, and drive away, and I'm not going to be able to push the envelope anymore tonight. But the UConn talks with the Big 12, the back and forth, getting detailed information, detailed discussions, talking to the Big 12 presidents. Some of this has to do with private equity. You see, the Big 12 presidents, they're not going to add UConn until they can see the total value towards the conference. Is it better for Baylor, for UConn to be in the conference, or worse? Is it better for Oklahoma State? Is it better for BYU? Is it better for Houston? Is it better than Iowa State? Up or down? What's the value? And that's the problem. They don't quite know the total value that UConn would bring into the conference. But the UConn, and one of the reasons, there's a lot of reasons to that, but they're going to be finding out more and more in the next 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. But one of the elephant in the room that, again, nobody talked about again today, I was expecting to see it, but I think a lot of people are embargoed, but I'm going to go ahead and push. I got the okay. I don't need to get every I'm very careful with what I put out there, but I don't need to get I don't need to dot the I and cross the T with everybody. I need to dot the I and cross the T to the people who've given me this information. And I've dotted the I's and crossed the T's. So if I'm upsetting people out there, if I'm upsetting ESPN, there's no strings attached. There is a reason why 4 days ago we had this story, that there was not going to be a resolution. Yes or no, it wasn't going to happen. There is this situation where UConn, the leadership, the consulting group, the Big 12, their presidents of schools, there is a situation in which private equity knocking on the Big 12's door, their presentation, quite possibly, allegedly that UConn has been part of some of those pitches. Now, as I'm jumping out of the hot water, as I'm jumping out of the hot springs, I'm about to dry myself off. Brett Yormark, the Brooklyn Nets, and all the money that came with it, the marketing, all the private equity possibilities. So, now I'm drying myself off. I'm not going to dip my toes in the water at all about this. Not tonight, not anymore. But this is why the Big 12 presidents don't really know the total value. of the possible addition of UConn. But let me, and there's other balls in the air that Yormark is juggling. I've gotten a lot of messages today. I've gotten a lot of messages. UConn, like, is this it, Greg? Is it over? No. It doesn't mean you're going to get into the Big 12, but this ain't over. It's not over. We told you September 1st you weren't going to get a yes, not this year. But you weren't going to get a no. And you haven't gotten either. They haven't completely, they're going to keep talking. The Big 12 is going to make some decision on the PE. They're going to be making this decision on the conference naming rights. They're going to be making a lot of decisions on possible extra revenue. The calendar, the non-traditional dates on the calendar for football. They're trying to squeeze out all the revenue possible. And the big elephant in the room happens to have UConn as part of the pitch. But let me take this in a whole holistic approach. Yeah, Connecticut fan. I'm not going to be, I'm out of the water. I'm drying myself off. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's not a yes tonight. It's not a no tonight. Now, let me show you something else. We're going away from the Big 12 right now. Okay? We're going into the Big 10 right now. We said on June 15th in the Holy Smokes Theater, we said on June 15th in the Holy Smokes Theater, that the Big Ten, that Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, they walked out. They walked out. They want to slow everything down. They don't want anything to happen with the ACC. They're not interested for right now. The Big Ten, the targets, we talked about it, Notre Dame, North Carolina, the top, and whatever connective tissues that would have to go to North Carolina. Those are the top two targets for the Big Ten. North Carolina and whatever their connective tissues need to be, that's the top target of the SEC. But we told you that it was slow down. You move too fast. The Big Ten does not want, they want things to settle down. They want to see how this year plays out. They want to see how their media partners react to the viewership numbers. The advertisers want to see what the reaction is from the advertisers, see what the reaction is from the athletic directors, see what happens in the college football playoffs, see what the Big Ten and the SEC settle on when it comes to the formation of the playoffs going forward, to see what happens with the governance, to see what happens with the NCAA House hearings, which we're going to find some results, approval or whatever tonight. But there's a million reasons why the Big Ten and the SEC slow down. They're not interested right now in expansion. The timing isn't right. We also said that the Big Ten, there's people out there that I'm not going to name names, but they actually believe that everything has changed. We're talking about the Big Ten here. That the Big Ten is no longer interested. It ain't a priority about academics, about being the right fit. It's all about TV viewership and winning football games. TV viewership and winning football games are important. Of course they are. But especially now, the Big Ten is going to be mighty selective. When they expand the academic piece, you got to be the right fit. This is not a shot against Nebraska. It's not a shot against Oregon. But if you're going to be school 19 or 20, you're going to have to be above Oregon and Nebraska. You've got to be sure they are the exact right fit, because the Big Ten they're at the point where they can be mighty selective. This is Scott Docterman. The University of Iowa president, Barbara Wilson, was asked in a PCA meeting if the Big Ten is done growing. I would say for now that we're done. If the Big Ten would add a team, it would be for the right reasons. When we were able to break the news on March 31st, 2022, that USC and the Big Ten, that USC had called the Big Ten and things were on, the train was on the track for Big Ten expansion with USC +1. When we went through those 3 months and nobody else was reporting it, during those 3 months, the Purdue Boilermakers athletic director came out and basically said the same thing. We're not active. We're not doing it right now. And I got raked over the coals because people were pointing to that and saying, Greg, you're wrong. The Big Ten is not expanding with USC. And I said at the time, not well. All I can tell you, it's happening. And I don't know if the Purdue Boilermaker athletic director, I don't know why he said that. But anyway, people raked me over the coals. When the Iowa president, Barbara Wilson, says, I would say for now that we're done, if the Big Ten would add a team, it would be for the right reasons. I would take Barbara Wilson's word for it. This is not a situation where the Purdue Boilermakers athletic director was just talking. I don't know why he said what he said. Maybe he had to say what he said. But Barbara Wilson, the key is not what I would say for now that we're done. It would be for the right reasons. If the Big Ten would add a team, it would be for the right reasons. And so that's from a Big Ten president. And when a Big Ten president says that, they're not talking about winning, adding a team to make sure that they win a men's basketball championship. When a university president says that, they're not saying for the right reasons to make sure that we get a football program in here. When they say the right reasons, they're talking about research and academics. And I would say this. This is what everybody is, that the chatter behind the curtain is absolutely this. It would be for the right reasons. The Big Ten, you've got to be the right fit. The Big Ten presidents have to look at you and have no questions that you are a Big Ten university. No question at all. If you're not, if you're on the borderline, you better have the right blend coming with you. So who are the right fits for the Big Ten when the time comes? Your Notre Dame, your North Carolina, your Virginia. Those are the right fits. Your Stanford. And then if you look in the Southeast, your right fits are Miami, your Georgia Tech, and, a Florida State if they can get on with one of those two schools. Or Florida State could get on with Notre Dame. I don't think that's going to happen. If Florida State could get on with North Carolina, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think Florida State is going to need a partner like a Miami or a Georgia Tech. I'm being serious, guys. The Big Ten, more than ever, not less than ever. There are people out there that got the story. I'm sorry to say this, but the Big Ten in this next expansion, you're going to have to satisfy the academic research part of the university, or they're not going to expand. The Big Ten is going to get huge. They got the huge viewership. They want to get into the Southeast. No question about it. They want Notre Dame. No question about it. But they're not going. They're going to be very, very selective. They will take a Stanford with the Notre Dame. They will take a Virginia if it's the connective tissue with North Carolina. Even if Virginia averages 28,000 people sitting in their college football games. That is the massive chatter behind the curtain. You can disagree with the Big Ten. Absolutely. You can say they're wrong. Absolutely. But I'm telling you what the chatter is. It is overwhelming. And I don't know if it's because the Big Ten has gotten to a spot where they're making so much money. I don't know if it's a certain roster of the current Big Ten presidents, if they've become even more academia, whatever you want to call it, elitists, or I don't know. Whatever you want to call it. But the Big Ten they have leaked. They have told reporters. I've been told. It's when Barbara Wilson says, if the Big Ten adds a team, it would be for the right reasons. And according to her, that's like adding a North Carolina. That's like adding a Virginia. That's like adding a Stanford. That's like adding a Georgia Tech. That is like adding Notre Dame, of course. That's like adding that type of university. It is. And I'm going to leave that the way it is. Now, before we get to your phone calls, when it comes to UConn, when it comes to what I just said about the Big Ten, whatever, UConn, Big 12, that story is going to go into 2025. However, we got some business to attend to before we get to your phone calls. And I'm going to make the selections first this week. I'm going to make them real fast. Excuse me. I'm going to make them real fast. We talked about all these games yesterday during our live show, right? We said these are going to be the games we pick. I was going to let you guys all marinate on it. But I'm ready. I'm going to go first, and then the PATC community is going to go second with your votes. Let's go. It is Greg the Gold segment. Let's get it on. Let's get it on. I'm going 11-1 this week, baby. Go. Greg the Gold. Okay. By the way, Greg the Gold's record is 1-9. 1-9 going in to week number 2. I'm going to do this real quick because I know we want to get your phone calls. I know we want to do all that stuff. So let's get to it. These are my picks. Texas at Michigan. Texas is -7. Michigan is +7. I am going with the Wolverines. I am going Michigan +7. Quickly. I think Michigan stops the Longhorns rushing game. Quinn Ewers, I don't know if they've got it. I don't know if they've got it all figured out on their passing game because they got new wide receivers. Week 1, throw that out of the book. I think Michigan surprises the Longhorns, and this becomes a very close game. Settled by a touchdown or less. So I am taking the defending, reigning champions, Michigan. Michigan. BYU at SMU. BYU's getting 11.5 points. It's not going to be enough. I've got the ponies. Give me -11.5. I think the SMU offense is now all lathered up. I was big on SMU before the season started. That first game was not the way it was supposed to go down, but I think SMU is on their way. So I've got the ponies, -11.5. Arkansas at Oklahoma State. This, to me, might be the easiest game of the week. I've got the Cowboys. I've got the Cowboys. Shame on me for last week's selection. Shame on me. The Cowboys -7.5, taking them without even batting an eye. Georgia Tech at Syracuse. The Orangemen +2.5. Georgia Tech -2.5. I'm going to shock a lot of people. I'm going to shock a lot of people. I got a feeling that Georgia Tech may not be able to handle their success. They're 2-0. Everybody's talking about the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech going to Syracuse. Kyle McCord, Fran Brown, the Orange win this game. I'm taking the Syracuse Orange +2.5. +2.5. Pittsburgh Panthers at Cincinnati. And I'm taking the Bearcats. Minor, Evan Pryor, Sorsby. Cincinnati has too much offense. I'm taking the Bearcats -2. Iowa State at Iowa. This is not going to be a surprise to anybody. A lot of people think, well, Greg, you're being too biased. Greg, you're too much of a golden gopher. All that is true. But I've got the Cyclones beating a whole lot of Big 12 teams this year. I got the Cyclones finishing third in the Big 12, knocking on the door to get to a Big 12 championship. And this game, the Cy-Hawk game, is the game that the Cyclones tell the nation, we are in it to win it. We are in it to win the Big 12. And we're going to be sending a message by beating the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Cyclones outright win the game. So, of course, I am taking +3. South Carolina Gamecocks at the Kentucky Wildcats. Vandegrift showed some stuff in the first week. South Carolina, what did they show? Not much. Basically, the number one thing you take out of a Gamecock game is, again, they do not have an offensive line. It's not an SEC offensive line. It's not a Big Ten offensive line. It's not an ACC offensive line. It's not a Big 12 offensive line. It's a lower half G5 offensive line. The Gamecocks are going to get destroyed, dismembered. The Kentucky's going to have a party. Kentucky -10. It's truly Greg the Gold week. Well, I'm going to say something here that a lot of you, if not all of you, are going to say, Greg, your cheese has completely slipped off your cracker. But before you say that, just give me a second. Give me a moment to try to explain. This UTSA at Texas State is the biggest G5 game ever. Now, there might be a bigger G5 game ever starting next week, or the week after, or the week after that. But this is two G5 teams. One from the Sun Belt, one from the AAC. And this is your first year of the College Football Expanded Playoffs. You're going to have a representative from the G5. You're going to have the highest ranked G5 team to go into the playoffs. This is not just a game UTSA versus Texas State. This is a game of the AAC and the Sun Belt. This is the biggest G5 game ever. And then this game's going to get replaced by some other G5 game down the road. But right now, on September 5th, in the Lord 2024, this is the biggest G5 game ever. And of course, I'm taking Ismail Mahdi, the great running back from Texas State Bobcats. I'm taking Joey Herbert, the great wide receiver from the Texas State Bobcats. I'm taking Jordan McLeod, the great quarterback from the Texas State Bobcats. I'm taking -1. I'm only giving UTSA 1 point. 1 point. And I'm at home, baby. I'm at home. The Kansas Jayhawks at Illinois. I'm going to get a lot of people mad at me once again. A lot of people mad at me once again. I took Illinois against the spread versus Kansas last year. I got whooped. I'm taking Illinois with the spread this year. This year, once again. I'm coming back for more punishment. More punishment. Why? Why? Because Altmaier grew up. The Illinois quarterback grew up. Everybody's congratulating Kansas for the victory now in the chat room. You guys are killing me. You guys are... Thank goodness Greg the Gold is showing up this week. Thank goodness. Illinois, the Fighting Illini, plus 5.5. Lock. Absolute lock. Do I have to say more about this game? Tennessee at North Carolina State. The Volunteers, Wolfpack. Big Ears Bowl. I'm feeling some Big Ten bias in the air. I took Iowa State. I took West Virginia against Big Ten teams. Tennessee at North Carolina State. Not only is North Carolina State going to cover the 8, quarterback Grayson McCall, running back Jordan Waters, who was a little bit off in the first week, Dave Concepcion, the glue, the Xavier Restrepo of Miami. He is the Restrepo of North Carolina State. Dave Concepcion, Justin Jolly, the great tight end, Noah Rogers, the wide receiver. North Carolina State is going to score some more, and they're going to beat Nico. They're going to beat the Volunteers. North Carolina State plus 8. Colorado at Nebraska. Well, you talk about Big Ten bias. No, I don't. This is what's going to happen. Nebraska is going to be looking good late in the third quarter, and then their offensive line is going to break down. They're going to give up some sacks. If there's going to be a fumble cause, Colorado's going to get a defensive score. Colorado wins this game by 1, 2, or 3 points. I'm taking the Colorado Buffaloes over Nebraska. And of course, the Nebraska fans in the chat room are very excited. I'm taking Colorado. Give me the 7.5 points. Ashton Jeanty, the beast, the great running back from Boise State. You have 2 tremendous running backs in G5. Ashton Jeanty and Ismail Mahdi from Texas State. Boise State at Oregon. Oregon is giving up 20 points. I'm taking Boise State. Boise State, I'm taking a lot of dogs. I'm taking a lot of dogs here. Boise State plus 20. So there it is. Those are the 12 games that we're going to be selecting. And I am going to go through it real quick with you guys. We're going to be taking you're going to be voting on those 12 games. I got Michigan plus 7. I got SMU minus 11.5. I've got Oklahoma State minus 7.5. I've got Syracuse plus 2.5. I've got Cincinnati minus 2. I got Iowa State plus 3. I've got Kentucky minus 10. I've got Texas State minus 1. I've got Illinois plus 5.5. North Carolina State plus 8. Colorado plus 7.5. Boise State plus 20. Here we go. It sounds, look, I'm reading the chat. I'm reading the chat. Greg doesn't know how bad Colorado's defense is. I get it. Okay, geniuses. Okay, geniuses who went 4-6 last week. Let's go. Let's go. Let's see what you got. Let's see what you got. Let me see. I can't even start this up correctly. Okay, here we go. Will Texas cover? Will Texas cover the minus 7 point spread versus Michigan. Yes, you're taking Texas. No, you're taking Michigan. The voting begins now. Yes, Texas. No, Michigan. Yes, Michigan, -7. No, Michigan, +7. I'm giving you 10 more seconds to vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We got a 75% Texas. The PATC community has chosen Texas. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Opie says 31-10, Texas is going to win. Immaculate says Texas by 20. I don't think so. I don't think so. BYU at SMU. Here we go. Game number 2. Game number 2. Will SMU cover -11.5 point spread versus BYU? Will SMU cover 11.5 point spread versus BYU? Yes, you're taking SMU. No, you're taking BYU. The voting begins now. Yes, SMU. No, BYU. Yes, SMU. No is BYU. Right now, it's a landslide. It's an absolute landslide. Giving you 5 more seconds because this is such a landslide. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Holy smokes. 78%. 78% of the PATC community took BYU to cover. Man, oh man, holy smokes. Arkansas at Oklahoma State. Will Oklahoma State cover the -7.5 point spread versus Arkansas? So if you vote yes, you're taking Oklahoma State and you're giving 7.5. If you vote no, you're taking Arkansas plus 7.5. The voting begins now. Again, another landslide. Another landslide. The PATC community. They don't seem to be having any split. It seems to be pretty uniform. I'm going to give you 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 70%. 70%. Takes Oklahoma State. Wow. There's not been a close vote yet. This is an interesting game. Most interesting game. Will Georgia Tech cover -2.5 point spread versus Syracuse? If you say yes, you're taking Georgia Tech and you're giving 2.5 points to Syracuse. If you say no, you're getting 2.5 points against Georgia Tech. Yes, Georgia Tech. No, you're taking Syracuse. The voting begins now. I'm just warning you guys. I'm just warning you. Greg the Gold is making an appearance this week. Ten more seconds to vote. The voting is a little bit closer. Keep chopping. Mr. Rutgers says McCord coming out party. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 67% take the rambling wreck of Georgia Tech. Holy smokes. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Cincinnati is favored by 2 points. Both offense rolled last week. Eli Holstein, the transfer quarterback for Pittsburgh from Alabama, and I was surprised he won the quarterback one spot. Not that he won over, I was not a fan of Nate Yalmer. Not a fan of the Pittsburgh quarterback. But I still thought he was going to get quarterback one spot for the first week. But no, Pat Narduzzi went with Eli Holstein, which I believe the Pittsburgh beat writers were even a little bit surprised. And then, of course, Brendan Sorsby coming from Indiana. You guys know how much I love Sorsby. Pittsburgh at Cincinnati. Let's see what you guys say here. All right. Will Cincinnati cover -2 point spread versus Pittsburgh? Yes, you're taking Cincinnati. No, you're taking Pittsburgh. Voting begins now. There seems to be a little bit of a Big 12 bias in the voting. Seems to be a little bit of a Big 12 bias in the voting. We'll see how that works out for you guys. Cincinnati. It's a close vote. It's the closest vote we've had so far. I'm giving you guys 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There it is. 54% takes Cincinnati. And that is the first game out of the first 5 games that the PATC community and the fat guy from Minnesota, it's the first game that we agree with. We both take Cincinnati. Well, here we go, huh? Yes. 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 Oh, a Big 12 shot by Greg. By Nitwit. Yes, I take shots at everybody. I take shots at everybody. Well, what do we have here? What do we have here? Will Iowa cover -3 point spread versus Iowa State? Yes, you're saying Iowa Hawkeyes in Iowa City at home is going to cover, you're going to give happily the 3 points to Iowa State. If you vote no, you're taking Iowa State and the 3 points. Yes, Iowa. No, Iowa State. The voting begins now. The voting begins now. Ryan Thomas, Minnesota has the frigid temperatures. It does in the winter because Greg lives there. Well, Mr. Ryan Thomas, expect Minnesota warming. I'm not even going to call it global warming. I'm going to call it Minnesota warming. Because I'm going to be on fire. I am going to be on fire. Yes, Iowa. No, Iowa State. 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The PATC community has spoken, and they've taken the Evo Hawkeyes 58%. Holy smokes. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. South Carolina versus Kentucky. And when we're done with the games, we're going to open up the phone lines. You can talk about the NCAA House hearings that are going on right now. You can talk about our selections, any games during the weekend, and the UConn information, everything. Talk about anything you want. When you give us a call, 763-260-1333, the floor is yours to talk about anything that you want to talk about in college football. Will Kentucky Wildcats cover the -10 point spread versus South Carolina? Whoops. The voting begins now. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. 70% of you take Kentucky. The biggest G5 game ever. As of right now, the most important one. Will Texas State cover -1 point spread versus UTSA? The voting begins now. Yes, you're taking Texas State. No, you're taking UTSA. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No! The PATC community has taken the Roadrunners. Holy smokes. UTSA, the PATC community has turned their back on the Texas State Bobcats and the fat guy from Minnesota. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Kansas at Illinois. Oh, boy. Oh, boy. Will Kansas cover -5.5 point spread versus Illinois? The voting begins now. John Hulk. When in doubt, just go against Greg's pick. Wow. Stormy Cyclone. My God, everyone's picking the opposite of Greg. Wise people. Wow. Wow. The community has absolutely turned on Greg the Gold. Absolutely turned on him. There's a mutiny going on here. There's an absolute mutiny going on here. And look. Greg the Gold's showing up. Greg the Gold is showing up. And it's going to cause a lot of harm in the PAT. Psychological harm. Psychological harm. 5 seconds left to vote. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bang. By 74%, the unwise PATC community took the Kansas Jayhawks. Tennessee Volunteers against North Carolina State. Here we go. The game is in Charlotte. Will Tennessee? You must be from Tennessee because you are the only 10 I see. Will Tennessee cover the -8 point spread versus North Carolina State? The voting begins now. The PATC community, you know what to do here. Wow. The PATC community is not right in the head on September 5th, 2024. 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bam! 73% takes Tennessee. My goodness. Mike, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. I'm absolutely speechless. Look, we might actually get a close vote here. The closest vote we've gotten from the PATC community was 54% Cincinnati. And that's the closest one so far. 54% Cincinnati, 46% Pittsburgh. This could be the closest one right here. Will Nebraska cover the minus minus 7.5 point spread versus Colorado? Yes, Nebraska. No, you're taking Colorado. The voting begins now. Nitwit PATC community not buying the chill that Greg is laying down. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Five more seconds because it's a blowout. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 70% of you took Nebraska. Holy smokes. And now for our last game, Boise State. Then I got some information here. I got more Scott document information, and then we're going to go to your phone calls. I got a little bit more to say about a subject we were talking about, Big Ten, and during the monologue. Boise State at Oregon. Let's get right to it. Will Oregon cover the minus 20 point spread versus Boise State? Yes, you're taking Oregon, and you're giving 20. No, you're taking Boise State. You're getting the 20 points. The voting begins now. You know, you got Boise State at Oregon. You've got UTSA playing at Texas State. A lot of G5 interest. Those three teams, along with Memphis, who's going to be playing Florida State next week. These G5 schools, they're going to want to put their best effort out to try to get the inside track on those rankings. We're going to give it 10 more seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 66% of you took Boise State. So, the PATC community took Texas. I did not. The PATC community took BYU. I did not. We both took Oklahoma State. You took PATC community, took Georgia Tech, Cincinnati, Iowa, Kentucky, UTSA, Kansas, Tennessee, Nebraska, and Boise State. So there it is. There's our selections for week 2. Before we get to your phone calls, there is some sort of we're going to get an update on Judge Wilkin as well. There's a lot of stuff going on here. There is a lot of stuff going on. Okay. This is what Scott Docterman, and we showed a post early about Big Ten expansion. This is Barbara Wilson. I was president. Just expanding on what Scott Docterman showed us in this post, in this Twitter, where Barbara Wilson, I was president, I would say for now that we're done. If the Big Ten would add a team, it would be for the right reasons. I told you what the chatter behind the curtain was. More than ever, you've got to be seen as a right fit academically and whatever research, institutionally, or you're not getting into the conference. More than ever. Now, this is what was said. I only can read it to you. I'm not going to be able to post it on the screen. If we're going to grow, this is Barbara Wilson, Presidential Committee on Athletics meeting. If we're going to grow the Big Ten, it would be for the right reasons. Right now, there's no compelling reason, but I'm one vote in the grand scheme of things. We've certainly been asked by other schools. The Big Ten has added 7 schools since 2011, with 4 West Coast programs, USC, UCLA, Washington, Oregon, becoming members as of August 2nd. With the perpetual questions involving Florida State and Clemson suing the Atlantic Coast Conference related to its grant of rights agreements, expansion remains a front burner topic across the college sports landscape. Although not an official requirement, membership in the Research Consortium Association of American Universities, AAU, is almost mandatory. It's not a requirement, but almost mandatory for any prospective candidates. Of the 18 universities, 17 are AAU members, and Nebraska was a member when it was admitted. Neither Florida State nor Clemson are members. Again, Barbara Wilson, quote, "We have an implicit criteria for who we want to be part of this conference," Wilson said. "The academic excellence is really at the forefront." So for those out there that keep saying that Tony Petitti doesn't have academics research as one of the top 2 criterias, you don't know what you're talking about once again. Collaboration also is a key tenet for the league institutions through the Big Ten Academic Alliance. It involves every facet of campus life. The Big Ten Academic Alliance. Most of the other conferences don't have the collaboration at the academic level, said Wilson. That's something we don't talk about as much as we probably should. We want the institutions to be similar as possible because those groups wouldn't be as helpful if we didn't have those connections. It all goes back to what I said on June 15th, what I said prior to that. For the Big Ten, what they are interested in, what their top targets is Notre Dame and North Carolina and the connective tissues with North Carolina, primarily Virginia. Stanford is a possibility with Notre Dame. And then in the Southeast, Florida State is going to have things go right for them. For them to get a Big Ten invitation, they're going to They're going to have to bring up the research to another level. They're going to have to be able to convince the Big Ten that they are going to be the right fit in the years ahead. And they're going to have the right partner. Unfortunately, it's not going to be Clemson. Florida State's going to need a Miami. Florida State's going to need a Georgia Tech. Florida State's going to need a Notre Dame. Florida State's going to need a North Carolina. I was honest when I said that months ago. When I was raked over the coals, I was honest to you then. I'm being honest to you now. It ain't over. Florida State's going to still shoot for the Big Ten. Florida State's going to still shoot for the SEC. But I'm telling you, the chatter behind the curtain that's coming directly from the Big Ten, that's what the Big Ten's looking at. The Big Ten is looking at a Notre Dame, of course, a North Carolina, if it can happen. They're going to battle with the SEC over North Carolina. The Big Ten's not going to give up on North Carolina. It's a lean SEC. You and I have talked about it, but the Big Ten ain't going to give up on North Carolina. It's whatever's connected to North Carolina, a Virginia, Miami. They are a right institutional fit. A Georgia Tech is a right institutional fit. The criteria and academic research is even more important to the schools that are trying to get into the Big Ten, because the Big Ten is going to be more selective than ever because they can't afford to be. Whatever happens in the next Big Ten expansion, whatever combination it is, 2 schools, 4 schools, whatever combination it is, does it include Notre Dame? Does it include Notre Dame? The academic, the research, the Big Ten Academic Alliance, that back is going to get scratched, or it's not going to happen. Nobody has been vetted and cleared except for Notre Dame, and North Carolina would be vetted and cleared real quick. That was the truth when I told you. It's the truth now. Even though, well, whatever. Now, let's get to your phone calls. Talk about it. We got a lot to cover. You can talk about anything. One more thing. One more thing. Ross Dellenger. It's clear Judge Wilkin was under the impression that the settlement permits pay for play through third-party NIL to athletes. NCAA's prohibition on pay for play is not going to be there anymore, right? She asked. Before she was told that it will exist. So we've got some drama going on during the hearings. If for those who've been watching it all, please give us a call. Now the phone lines are open. 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Call us. Anything you want to talk about, the phone lines are open. You've got so much to talk about. We've got a stacked show, absolutely stacked show. We've been already on the air for an hour and a half. We'll go as long as the phone calls come in. Immaculate says it's a bit of a bleep show, to be honest. And it also gets back to this. And I know so SEC fans, Big Ten fans get upset with me every time I mention this. How do I know it? Because I get direct messages. I get messages from you all. And I'm fine with that. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. But I'm sorry. Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, I do not hold them up high. They butchered all this.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, Mr. Hot Guy. Iowa versus Iowa State. Oh boy, the drama of college football is just starting to heat up, my friend. The floor's yours, man. You've got the floor. So many things going on, sir. Go ahead.
Shoot, what do you want to talk about? Do you want me to? I don't even know what to say about this hearing. I almost sometimes feel like I know more about this than some of these lawyers. They don't even seem to be talking about the same things. Like, I'm watching Mr. Kessler get absolutely frustrated with these people. They're talking about how they need to have this cover for kids in the future. And he's like, we're creating a brand new system that does that. This is for people in the past. Like, I feel like everyone in this is just starting to figure out with this hearing what's actually going on. And
Can I tell you what Mitt Winter just said?
Yeah, I've caught up a little bit, but go ahead.
Judge Wilkin is currently pointing out how absurd the NCAA booster rules are and why the House settlement's attempt to limit and regulate collectives is problematic.
Here's the funny thing about it, because, we've had all these injunctions that have stopped the NCAA from doing anything about it, but they still have all the rules in place to stop NIL. But they've been injuncted from being able to enforce any of them. And she's thinking that they're going to let that go with this, and the NCAA guys say, no, we're not. So they think that they're going to be able to go back to this. So I'm wondering if the schools, in wanting to bring all the NIL into their athletic departments, then still want to stop, any outside forces from doing it. It's a little crazy. I'm watching some of these lawyers. I mean, Kessler looks like he just wants to start throwing things. I think that they really thought that they were a lot closer to something than what I'm seeing here.
Yeah, it's
it is not what I expected.
We're in trouble. We're in trouble. Can't they just do the collective bargaining? You know why they can't do that? Because Mr. Greg Sankey's not for it. Because Mr. Tony Petitti's not for it. They're not. And these school presidents are not for it. So we're going down this. We're just like a drain. We're just circling the drain right now.
Well, I feel like she was, and there's another guy who's doing they're doing the updates on Twitter. There's multiple people doing it, and I feel like she was very much leaning and giving what I thought would be the signal, like, yep, we're gonna deny objections or go forward, and then this part hit. And she even made him go on a 10-minute break to figure out what the hell they were going to tell her. And it's now, I don't know. This issue right here could be a problem, a real problem to this issue. Right now, if I'm AD and I'm watching this, I'm shaking in my boots. I'm sitting here going, oh my God, what are we doing? She's gonna come after this.
39 seconds to go. Ross Dellenger, NCAA lawyer, calls the booster prohibition in the settlement is a central part of the agreement. Without it, I'm not sure there will be a settlement to submit. The judge is shaking her head, clearly skeptical of this provision. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's almost been like two different hearings. Like, at first it was like some of the guys who were trying to get objections, whenever I could sense some frustration in them, like they felt like they were just talking to a wall. And then we got to this point, and it's just been flipped upside down. I don't know. I don't know what's doing it. I'm about to just turn it off because I don't think anything's going to come of it.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm just like, I'm back to football. I'm back to
yeah.
I worry, like, is Ferentz gonna, let the guys have the reins and do what they did last week? Well, in the second half, because most teams, they have a plan for the first half, right? Like, you've got your scripted drives, you've got your plans in place, and we saw how that worked for Iowa. And they went into the halftime and they made adjustments, and then we saw how that worked for Iowa. Well, Ferentz wasn't in those adjustments, so
yeah.
That's my big worry about it. Like, when people say, "Oh, is I going to win it?" Well, I think it kind of depends on Ferentz, to be quite honest. If he allows those guys to do whatever they did at halftime and after that, I honestly don't think ISU actually stands much of a chance. I think they'll play good. I mean, this is Iowa State. They're going to play out of their mind. But I think Iowa's actually better on both offense and defense if he stays out of the offense and just let them do their thing. In terms of some of these other games, man, you really had Chat going against you.
Judge Wilkin tells the parties to go back to the negotiation table on its rules attempting to regulate collectives. So there looks like there will have to be changes to the settlement before any approval.
Yeah. I do have some news for you, good news for you on it. She said at the very beginning, plans for the major hearing, when the final one, they're not going to do it like this. She wants to do in court, but with everyone else, with most people out of the court, because it kind of feels like she thinks there's going to be a lot of press, a lot of people that want to. There's just not going to be enough room. So I know that they have that YouTube, and they tried to use it for the Schwarzenegger case, and I'm thinking that we might see that for whenever the final hearing comes. So for yourself, for anyone else who wants that might be much more helpful and useful than what they have now. Like, I can't even control the volume of this under this setup right now, so probably not a good one for you. But
yeah, that's good news.
Yeah, so just to kind of be aware in the future, but that may not be till next year, right? So
yeah,
I don't know.
Wow.
I give you the little head that is like, this thing is just turned over, man. I don't know. Definitely not what I expected to see.
All right, man.
Talk to you later, buddy.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, the NCAA House hearings went pear-shaped. Man, oh man. If you're new to the channel, or if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this College Football Rebel Outpost channel with a donation. Hit the $, and where you make a comment, we'll get you super chat as quick as we possibly can. We've covered a lot of ground on this live show Thursday night. The UConn Big 12 Fox dance will continue into 2025, and we reported that to y'all on September 1st, 4 days ago. We're also talking about how the Big 10 president, Barbara Wilson, the Iowa president, basically saying, we're going to be mighty selective the next time the Big Ten does expand, and that matches the huge, loud chatter behind the curtain. We covered that. We did our picks against the spread. Fat guy from Minnesota, Greg, the Ice Age versus the PATC community. We got a lot of different picks between us two. We'll see how it all works out. Friday night, BYU SMU. We are going to be doing a watch party. We're going to be doing a watch party for the BYU SMU game. So if you are interested, keep your head on a swivel. I don't know what time we're going to start it. We'll put it out on X. We'll let you know when the watch party begins. Big game for BYU. Big game for SMU. So I hope to see you in the chat room. We'll have the scoreboard behind us. You watch the game at home. I watch the game here. Put down your comments in real time, and we will go at it. We will go at it.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Mr. Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours.
Greg, I think you're the only person that could freeze that could freeze antifreeze in the middle of the summer at noon.
Well, I did last week. But you know what, Ryan? Every fat guy from Minnesota has its day. Every dog has its day. And this weekend, I'm going to show you what the definition of a comeback is. All right? All right?
Okay.
All right. I'm just warning you. I'm absolutely warning you. A heat wave is coming. Go ahead, sir.
That's fair enough, Greg. That's fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly distracted with the House settlement, and I don't know if anyone was in the same room. That was a disaster. But anyway, it's interesting. I want to go back to. I want to play a little bit of history here regarding UConn. You know, well, it's not UConn history, but I remember in May of 2010, the Mountain West presidents got together and they were going to vote to admit Boise State as a member. But they ended up, because the day before, Chip Brown broke the story on the 6 Big 12 schools that were looking at going to the Pac-12. And when the Mountain West realized there might be an opportunity to grab some of them or merge with them, they put a hold on adding Boise State. And then things materialized the way they did, and they ended up adding them later and then a couple others after that. But the point is, you know, a lot of times this is just, you know, it doesn't mean these things go away, that things are ending. It just means that things are, you know, everyone's sort of waiting for things to materialize. And I think a lot of that will probably be what happens with the ACC deal and kind of how that materializes. I still will go back 10 million times, and I will double down on this over and over and over again. The question people need to ask themselves is this: is Greg Sankey willing to wait 12 years to get at UNC, especially when things can change at the president level and the board of trustees level? And I think that right there is just a fundamental thing that I'm just not going to get past. I don't think the ESPN, because of their
okay, let
studios
me push back a little bit on that.
Go ahead.
Because, you know, first of all, if we all just sat here and locked arms and agreed with each other, it would be boring. First of all.
Yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
But you know, I have been hearing, as you know, I've heard differently, right? I've heard there's no question that this is the ACC ESPN partnership is going to continue, and the negotiations that are going on right now are under the composition clause. And if at any time Florida State and Clemson do decide to leave the conference without their media rights, I don't think that's going to happen. Let's say they do that, blah, blah, blah. Then ESPN's going to trigger the composition clause again because 2 or more teams are leaving the conference. North Carolina piece is very important, right? The SEC is targeting North Carolina. I happen to believe, I have reasons to believe, some people disagree with me, that's great. I happen to believe it's a lean SEC, and I've given all the reasons why, and I've done it for well over a year. But I've also heard the Big Ten ain't going to give up on North Carolina, right? So it isn't like it's an automatic thing that North Carolina is going to go to the SEC. And there's a lot of other interest with ESPN. They're making money off this contract with ACC. So I don't know if it's just enough to where it's simple as Greg Sankey ain't going to wait around 12 more years. They might not even get North Carolina. So that's my pushback.
I will counter on this. The first thing is, if it was a matter as simple as the composition clause, this would have, and given the de minimis amount of money that would be involved, this would have been resolved clear back in January.
The composition clause was just triggered August 2nd.
Yeah, but they could have been negotiating the
They
terms on that with the anticipation of that clear back then.
they
I mean,
have been. They have been. And
they would have had an MOU, Greg. I mean,
no, okay. Well, and also part of again, we'll see what happens here. But I also, and because you and others and Immaculate have asked that great question, why hasn't it happened yet? I've asked that question, and I've been told over and over again it's because they're not going to make, like, they're not, both sides are going to, there's not going to be a decision until there needs to be a decision. Like, the final package isn't, whatever they're negotiating, the result of it ain't, they're not going to put their pen to the paper until that the last moment that ESPN would need to. They're not going to make this judgment, this decision, and make it official months before they need to. So that's the answer to why it hasn't happened yet. So take that as, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I will still say that this is the most, I mean, ESPN has facilities in Charlotte, and the SEC network is headquartered in Charlotte.
Yep.
And I don't think ESPN wants Fox or NBC or CBS getting any kind of foot into the state of North Carolina. And I just to me, I will just put this the same way I put to the Pac-12 folks last year. ESPN is going to get the content to fill its content needs from those ACC properties, regardless of what conference they're in, whether it's in the SEC, whether it's in the Big 12, and whether it's in some sort of rebuilt, backfilled ACC. They're going to get it, and they're going to get it at the price they want. And I think that ultimately, they're going to evaluate that, and as soon as North Carolina can figure out what's going on with North Carolina State and the Board of Governors, I think that can move very quickly. I mean, I have to think that, it's already been proven that Jim Phillips flat out lied about the look-in. It's an opt-in, and, we already know that. And we also know that Jim Phillips also royally screwed up on the playoff expansion and the money but distribution that could have gotten more for the ACC but didn't because he's an idiot. I just think that, right now the ACC is the horse and buggy conference, Greg.
And that's what I used to call the Big 12.
Yep, and I just don't think it's savvy enough to do that. But I'll come back to it. Is if North Carolina can find a way to either get the SEC to sign off in North Carolina State or extricate themselves from North Carolina State, I think that's going to be kind of the end of the line. That's North Carolina is the heart and soul of the ACC. And if they lose that, that's a death blow. But anyway, that's all.
But going back to your main point. Your main point is you don't think. Now correct me. I might be screwing this all up, Ryan. Okay, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I think what you're saying, what your main argument is you don't think the ACC contract is going to be extended beyond 2027, right?
I think the issue is it depends. It's extension is not the right word. I think.
Okay, what is the word? Let me know what you say is not going to happen. Like, what is your prediction on what's about to happen here?
I think the existing contract, as far as the option being exercised, is not going to happen. But I do not rule out the fact that a surviving ACC that's backfilled or shaped, primarily private universities or something to Notre Dame's design. Okay. I do think that they could get a new deal to another term after that. So I mean, I don't see the ACC existing in its form after 2027.
Okay. Now, the Phillips and I'm just going to repeat this. Phillips and ESPN are renegotiating the contract, or they're renegotiating the contract. What we've been told per the composition clause. Okay, that takes care of if it's true, and I'm just putting this out there, Ryan, because again, if what I'm saying is accurate, and we're gonna find out relatively soon from now, within about another month.
Yeah, I mean, renegotiation. Let's talk about what he has authority to do. If we understand.
Ahead.
I mean,
what do you think he has the authority to do?
Well, my understanding is, if it's something of a valuation that's like less than 5%, not a material change, he doesn't need to get sign off for everybody. But if it's truly a renegotiation of something big, he's got to get a new grant of rights.
He does not have to get a new grant of rights.
Yeah, but Greg, he doesn't have to get a new grant of rights.
That's what I'm being told. So that's the difference.
Then that tells me right there, any renegotiations of the contract, any changes to the contract, Greg, would be probably not significant probably not significant amounts of money. They may be $1 million or $2 million extra per school, but they're not earth shattering, and it doesn't change the situation.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll see what happens, because this and again, I brought up articles on a live show before about this, what we're being told that Peek Around the Corner is basically what ACC and ESPN is doing is exactly what they did when they added on Pittsburgh and Syracuse. When they decided to bring in Pittsburgh and Syracuse, it brought the composition clause in. They both negotiated. And when they negotiated, ACC and ESPN, if they couldn't come up to a number, there was going to be an arbitrator that decided, but it would not change the grant of rights, and the ACC would not be able to go outside of ESPN per the ACC ESPN media rights agreement. The thought what people are telling me is they believe, but they do not know, Ryan, because 90% of that media rights agreement is redacted. But they believe the language is still there to where all Phillips and ESPN is doing right now is reenacting what happened with Pittsburgh and Syracuse, but it's California, Stanford, and SMU. We're going to renegotiate a contract. It's going to be for little. It's probably not going to be for a whole bunch. And that contract then will go on to 2036.
Yeah, two things. First of all, when Syracuse and Pittsburgh, they were trying to get a lot more money than what they were getting. And nobody was going to oppose signing the grant of rights. And the money spread between the universities at that time, between the conferences at that time, was pretty similar. So there wasn't the flight risk. Yep. There wasn't the flight risk back then, and there is a flight risk now. If there's anything that's a material change that Phillips needs to get approval for, he's not going to get anyone to sign that grant. He's not going to get the major brands to sign the grant of rights.
So I think the major disagreement that you have with the chatter behind the curtain is you believe a new gore has to be set up.
If it's a huge material change. If it's not, then this is all just smoke and mirrors.
No,
it
Phillips.
Is. More smoke and mirrors.
Okay, but if it's not a huge material change, then it's just a renegotiated contract, but it goes out into 2036.
Yeah, but who's going to be happy with that? Do you think North Carolina's going to be happy?
Okay, but it's okay. I think we're just going through. It's not about being. I guess the main part is this is not an out card. This is not.
Oh.
No one. You're still going to have to get a settlement or a victory in the courts. This opt-in, opt-out stuff isn't the arrangement, the relationship between ACC and ESPN, the chatter behind the curtain is saying it ain't changing. It's going to stay there. The Gort is not going to run out in 2027. If you go back and read Magnus, the ESPN, he was at the time, he was the senior sports, whatever, 2012. He said during the Syracuse-Pittsburgh thing, he says, this does not tear up the grant of rights. This is the clause that gives both parties the opportunity to renegotiate, and things will continue on as is. If it's the same thing now, and I don't know for sure, because I don't know what the media rights agreement says, then this February thing is going to come and go, just like August 15th come and went without a ripple in the water. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, I mean, I think if there's anything that's going on, it's not something that's material, and we're talking about small amounts of money. Which at point, why does it take you 9 months to negotiate over a small amount of money? And going back to my original post, is ESPN's going to get the content from ACC properties regardless of what conference they're in, as long as it's a conference that ESPN controls the majority of the rights to. And I think that's I think that's what it is. I mean, certainly, I am wrong many times. I'm as wrong as often as badgers are evil, Greg. So I mean,
there it is. There it is. just kidding. Anytime you bring up badgers being evil, I agree with you, Ryan. I agree with everything you just said.
So, but anyway, I don't want to take up anyone's more time. But thank you for your patience, and thank you for giving me the extra time. Thanks, Greg. Have a good night.
Appreciate it. Well, we're going to find out, right? It's one of those things we're going to find out. We're either going to find out that there is some sort of change in the contract, like a few $1 million, or we're going to find out it's bigger.
Call from
JD.
JD, can you hold on one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
But I will say, I will caution this aspect of it doesn't take months and months and months and months of negotiation if it's just for a few $1 million. Well, there's the ACC could possibly, allegedly be looking at the same things that the Big 12 are in regards to a change in the college football schedule where they'll be offering games on non-traditional college football. So, and all that takes a lot of, negotiations. You got to get buy-ins from certain ACC schools. Florida State's not going to be playing on a Wednesday night, the day before Thanksgiving. So they're going to have a buy-in from two schools on that. And so there's a lot of, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the contract. But we'll see what happens. JD, Mr. Seminole, the floor is yours.
How you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. We made our selections for week 2. I talked about UConn and the Big 12. Talked about Barbara Wilson, Iowa president, what she had to say today about possible Big Ten expansion in the future. Florida State versus Memphis, about 9-10 days from now. What do you think, sir?
Yeah. I don't know. I tell everybody we're at +10 this week against the bye, so we might not even win the bye week. So we'll see. There's a long ways to go, but I tuned in very, very late. Matter of fact, I just caught part of yours and Ryan's phone call, and I don't want to belabor this point. I think the biggest discrepancy, and I think you kind of alluded to it right there at the end, I don't think anybody disagrees that the ACC and ESPN will continue in a partnership. The disagreement is whether or not it's the same contract. And I can't say for certain. I tend to believe it's a new contract, and I tend to believe because it'll be more than a 5% change, they'll have to get a vote on it. Now, the ACC and ESPN are going to either believe or pretend that the grant of rights continues on, this existing grant of rights. They're not going to voluntarily say, well, it might not, because we don't even know if the original grant of rights it actually binds member institutions to the conference once they leave anyway. Hence, we're in court.
Yeah.
So it might be that, yes, it requires a new grant of rights when there's more than that 5% change. They're not going to voluntarily rip up the old one and do a new one because there will be quite a few teams that leave.
Can I just stop you, JD?
Yes,
I do apologize. I'm going to give you the whole floor, okay?
Go ahead.
I just want to like Ryan Thomas just put a comment in. Ryan, I love you, man, but this is where the two ships are passing into the night. So I like what Ryan Thomas said here because this is going to illustrate where the chatter behind the curtain believes what ESPN and the ACC believe, and the other side where everybody else believes this other thing. Okay, so Ryan Thomas says, and if those presidents can't be forced into a deal change without being afforded the opportunity to leave. They pay the $140 million exit fee, but they are out and the media rights leave with them. That's not what ESPN and the ACC believes. That's not what they believe the media rights says. In the media rights agreement, the ACC and ESPN, just like what happened to Pittsburgh and Syracuse, is if there's a new deal created, negotiated, triggered by the composition clause, it's going to be voted on by the executive committee or by all the presidents. It's going to go a yes or no vote. And if it's a yes, the new deal takes place. But nobody's going to leave. The gore does not get ripped up. The gore remains. According to what ACC and ESPN believes. Those were this was ESPN's exact words in 2012. No, the gore remains the same. The deal gets changed. But the gore, in fact, one of the biggest factors why the ACC brought in Pittsburgh and Syracuse was to trigger the composition clause. Maybe it was one of the biggest factors that they brought in California, Stanford, and SMU. We've all been focusing on the composition clause being triggered when two or more schools leave. But it also gets triggered when two or more schools come in. And according to ESPN, according to what they said, the gore does not get ripped up. It is there. The ACC, now, maybe they're wrong and it's going to have to be alleged, going to have to go to the courts and whatever. We'll see what happens. But I think ESPN and ACC are acting on the belief that they can, if it's a small change, then the executive committee is going to vote on it, probably yes, and then the small change happens, and nobody gets the opportunity to leave because the gore remains. Or if there's a big change that happens, then all the schools are going to vote on it, and enough schools, if they vote on it, and they probably vote yes, if it's a big enough change, then the gore still doesn't get ripped up, just like back in 2012. I just wanted to make it clear. I think that's where the ships are passing the night. People are believing that there is a change in the media rights, that suddenly the gore gets ripped up. A lot of real smart, good people believe that happens, but then there's other people in ESPN, ACC, they are under the beliefs it doesn't happen. Go ahead, JD. The floor is yours. You got the rest of your time.
Well, there's 3 to 4. There's multiple sides to this. One is I don't know that I believe ESPN and the ACC because they've been less than truthful up to this point. So they're not going to offer the other side of the coin. They're only going to offer the side that best benefits them. Of course, they're in business, and they're actually trying to hold their members hostage. So they're not going to give them an opportunity to get out if they don't have to. So to say that I'm very skeptical of ESPN and the ACC is an understatement. As far as I'm concerned, I think they've lied, and they've lied publicly multiple times, but that's for a different conversation, and I think we've actually had that conversation. Again, they said there was no opt-in, opt-out. They said the contract went to 2036, and even Dellenger in one of his articles made it clear the contract only went to 2027. It can continue on, but it doesn't go past 2027. And there's other aspects where the ACC has just – Phillips has lied in a few occasions the last couple of years, and I understand he's in a predicament. I understand, but they've just been less than truthful. Now, going back to the ACC media agreement, the media agreement's not the governing body of the conference. The conference constitution and bylaws are the governing body.
Yes.
So, yes, any type of change, I believe there has to be more than a 5% change because I can't see under any scenario that ESPN allows the Raycom arrangement to continue. That's your Tier 3 rights, okay? They want those. They can monetize those. The $50 million they get from Raycom and the CW every year to as payment for those Tier 3 rights, that's what 12 football broadcasts, and I don't know how many basketball broadcasts are in that arrangement. That is worth far more than $50 million. So they're going to want that. Well, that's more than 5% right there. I mean, we're not even talking about the other aspects. But, again, now we're getting into contract specifics. But I do believe that it will be much more than a 5% change. I do believe it will have to get voted on, but I do believe they have the votes. So it might be a moot point anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
so,
if it's a big change, and if it, I don't know what, like, I mean, I don't know, like, a certain amount of money more for each school, whatever it is, they're going to, I mean, you can line up about 12, 13 schools right away that are going to vote for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but now the question is, and Ryan Thomas and others are saying, but the schools that don't vote for it are able to leave the conference because it's going to be a new Gore and all that. That's where we're passing in the night. The chatter behind the curtain is saying no, that within the media rights agreement that we cannot see, people think there's language in there that basically there is a path. There's language in there that says, no, the Gore remains the same. That because ESPN has said it in public. It's interesting because I keep getting reminded by this. By the people who I talk to, they're saying, Clemson is not, Clemson. All they are arguing basically is, first of all, they argued we shouldn't be being sued, it should be in our venue. But their main argument is the Gore is there. Clemson is saying the Gore is there. The Gore we're not saying that it's not valid. It's all the way to 2036. So Clemson is not even arguing this stuff. Clemson is saying but the Gore is limited because how it is written. That is, once we leave, our content is not necessary for the continuation between ESPN and ACC. The contract will continue to go on. The Gore will, but it's limited in scope. So Clemson's not even arguing that, Anyways, go ahead, JD.
No. Well, Clemson was smart, and I think Clemson and FSU. I think there was some collaboration,
Sure,
and maybe there wasn't.
I agree. Yeah.
But Florida State just went ahead and they went after everything. Clemson was a very narrow approach. One is, I think that way you can't necessarily combine the cases. They're two separate cases. They're going after separate issues. Clemson wanted to be very streamlined and argue a specific point. If the FSU case goes all the way through, I mean, man, this could go 5-6 years because they're catching a lot of hell for the allegations. But I don't know. We're just in jurisdiction phase, and multiple of their allegations have been proven accurate about the opt-in, about the 2027. So much of it is now coming to light. What if Swofford really did all those things? What if all this other stuff happened? What if Swofford really, because there's been multiple people that I've heard that had said that the 2016 grant of rights was signed under duress. Swofford basically came into town and more or less threatened FSU, if you don't sign this, you could be expelled from the conference, still bound to the grant of rights, and you owe us $200 and something million. At that time, FSU was not in a position to get into the SEC or the Big Ten. They were in a bit of a transition, whether it be athletic department, university. There was a lot going on then. And he didn't come in and just and it was just like an all shucks meeting. Let's get this done. He came and he threatened them. Didn't meet, from what I understand, didn't meet with the board of trustees. Went straight in and under duress. The president of the university just ended up signing it. If that ends up being true or whatever it ends up shaking out in court, those are just allegations. I don't have proof. But there's just a lot to the cases. And so, yes, that could go on for years. But the Clemson is very specific. Yeah. They're not going to argue whether the grant of rights goes on forever, 2036. It's just it doesn't apply to us if we leave.
Now, Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, Ryan Thomas in the chat says nobody can be forced to sign a contract materially different from something that I originally agreed to. But again, what if it says in the ESPN media rights agreement? What if it says under the composition clause? Because obviously, it's happened before. It looks like it's happening again. What if it says there in language that during the composition clause, there is a way to trigger, both sides want a number, an arbitrator, they talk about an arbitrator, and that change gets voted on, and then everybody in the court and the grant of rights doesn't get ripped up. Of course, they're not going to use my stupid language in the agreement, but what if that is in the media rights? What if that's in what we cannot see? I don't know if it is. I'm being told that the ACC and ESPN is acting in accordance to, that's they have this authority. It's and you talk about the ACC bylaws. Well, it's the authority of the commissioner. It's under the authority of the commissioner. The 5% stuff, being able to negotiate, and then who votes on it determines on how big a material change it is. But it's got to be voted on if there's a change within a media agreement. Like it even says that. You don't have to wait till the end of this media agreement to change it. You can change it within it, and the composition clause is one of the triggers. But the grant of rights supposedly doesn't get ripped up. But we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. That's just That's the argument and the disagreement. And the disagreement is whether or not it's a new deal or the same deal.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the point of
Yeah.
disagreement. But I don't think anybody disagrees on whether or not the ACC and ESPN will continue in a partnership. No, that's going to continue. I mean, and the thing is that ESPN wants to try to renegotiate the whole thing under the composition clause, because if they just cancel the deal, then the ACC can renegotiate with any network. So they want to try to hold them in because they need the content. But again, we're getting back into, they needed new grant of rights when they added the ACC network. They needed a new grant of rights because there were additional things. The universities aren't getting consideration for their Tier 3 rights. They're not making any money on that. Well, once they start getting paid for Tier 3 rights, that's additional consideration. And then there's an argument that a new grant of rights would be needed for that, because why would it be needed when you added the ACC network, but then now you're adding an additional Tier 3? People will say, oh, well, that's a benefit to the member institutions. Well, yeah, well, so was the ACC network. But that is enough of a change. It's a total different broadcasting agreement. So there's a lot involved there, and there's other aspects that you'd say, well, it needs a new grant of rights. But again, the beef that I have with the national media is with all the smoke and mirrors and deception, and I'm going to use the word deception, by the ACC. They still take their word for it. They tell them something and they take it hook, line, and sinker. I'm not saying, you have to be combative with the ACC because you need access. If you don't have access, and there's certain media members that are rooting for the ACC because it's in their best interest. All my only complaints have ever been is just be fair, be skeptical. I mean, they're never skeptical. They always just take their word for it. And that's that's a part that really aggravates me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate the time. I just thought
man.
I'd chime in on that issue, man.
Appreciate it, JD.
Have a great night. Hey, thank you.
Mr. Seminole.
All right, bye.
Mr. Seminole, congratulations to Chris S., Jason Ritchie, Amelia, Isel Knoll, LK Knoll, Joe Atkinson. You have all been gifted a membership. So all of you are hereby officially knighted, cloak and dagger. You can go to our YouTube channel and look at the membership-only early peak cloak and dagger episodes. We dropped 45, episode number 45 a couple days ago. A little bit of nugget of information, early peak cloak and dagger information. So for you to watch, go ahead and give it a listen. If you want to become a member of our program, please go to the link in the description box below the video. Hit the link to go to our YouTube channel and then hit the join button and become a member of college football's Peek Around the Corner early peak cloak and dagger membership. So I appreciate it if you do that. For those who haven't become a member or subscribed to our channel, please hit the subscribe button, smash the like button if you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. We've been on the air for almost 2.5 hours. So we are going to shut it down. Keep your head on a swivel. If there is breaking news, you know what we do. We come on live here at Peek Around the Corner. Tomorrow night, we're planning to do a live show earlier in the day. Tomorrow, Friday. Tomorrow night, without a shadow of a doubt, we're going to be doing a watch party. SMU, BYU. Please join us. Let's have some fun. Watch college football together. Put down your comments in real time during the game. It's a lot of fun. So I hope to see you tomorrow night. If I don't see you tomorrow night, I'm going to see you throughout the weekend. We're going to be on here many, many hours. We're going to be doing a double watch party during the noon games. We're going to be doing possibly a double watch party Saturday night You're going to be hearing more information about that tomorrow. Check it out. Check us out at X, at Flug Empire on X. We're going to give you a little bit of a heads up on what we're doing for the weekend. So until we see you, until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.